What can we do? We're not powerful like you, Jake smiled. You don't need power. You need love. And that's something every human has. He organized the parents and crew members around the children. Tell them stories, he instructed. Remind them of happy memories. Sing them songs. Show them that they matter. As the adults began sharing memories and singing lullabies, something beautiful happened. The collars started to flicker more often. The children's eyes began to clear for longer moments. But it wasn't enough. The soul steel was still too strong. We need more, Zara said. More love, more connection. Jake had an idea. He activated the ship's communication system and broadcast across the entire galaxy. This is Jake Morrison calling all ships, all stations, all colonies. We have 30 children who need to remember they're loved. If you can hear this, please help us. The response was incredible. Within minutes, thousands of voices were singing across the galaxy. Mothers sang lullabies from 100 different worlds. Fathers told jokes that made their own children laugh. Grandparents shared stories of courage and hope. The wave of love and connection spread through space like ripples in a pond. And something amazing happened. The collars couldn't handle it. They were designed to control individuals, but they had no defense against the united love of an entire galaxy. One by one, the soul steel collars cracked and fell away. The children blinked, looked around, and ran to their families with joyful tears. Little Emma hugged her mother tight. Mommy, I dreamed I was lost, but then I heard everyone singing. Jake wiped tears from his own eyes. That's the thing about humans, he told Zara. We're stronger together than apart. But their celebration was interrupted by a familiar voice. Very touching, High Chancellor Voss said as his ship appeared outside the viewport. But he looked different now. Older, sadder, but somehow more human. May I come aboard? Jake and Zara exchanged glances. What do you want, Voss? To surrender, he said simply, and to ask for your help. 20 minutes later, Voss sat in the ship's meeting room looking tired and defeated. After what happened at the prison, many council members changed their minds about our methods, he explained. But others became even more cruel. They've taken control and are building an army of enslaved children. Why are you telling us this? Zara asked suspiciously. Voss looked at the happy children playing nearby. Because I remember now what it felt like to be good. And I want to feel that way again. The question is, can you forgive someone like me? Jake thought about it for a long moment. Then he held out his hand. Everyone deserves a second chance, he said. Even you. Voss shook his hand with tears in his eyes. Over the following months, Jake and Zara traveled across the galaxy with a growing crew of friends and allies. They found more enslaved colonies and freed them. They turned enemies into friends. They built hospitals and schools where there had been prisons. Everywhere they went, they brought the same message. You are not alone. You are loved. You matter. And slowly the galaxy began to heal. One evening, as their ship traveled between stars, Zara found Jake on the observation deck, looking out at the cosmos. Any regrets? She asked, sitting beside him. Jake thought about his old life, alone, traveling from repair job to repair job, carrying his grief like a heavy weight. None, he said. Well, maybe one. What's that? Jake pulled out the old photo of his wife and daughter. I wish Sarah and Emma could see this. They would have loved meeting you. Zara took the photo gently. Jake, what if I told you they can see this? What do you mean? Zara's eyes glowed softly, and for just a moment, Jake felt a presence he recognized. Warm, loving, proud. They're always with you, Zara said. And they're so proud of the man you've become. Jake felt his heart fill with peace. Thank you, he whispered. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. So, Zara said eventually, what's our next mission? Jake grinned and pulled out his tool bag. There's a whole galaxy full of broken things out there. Broken machines, broken hearts, broken dreams. I figure we've got plenty of work to do. Together? Always together. As their ship sailed through the starfield, Jake realized something important. He had started this journey as a lonely mechanic looking for a repair station. Instead, he had found something much more valuable. He had found family. He had found purpose. And most importantly, he had learned that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe isn't technology or magic or ancient weapons. Sometimes it's just one person choosing to care about another. And that, Jake thought, as he watched Zara laugh at something one of the children had said, was the greatest repair job of all. Go ahead, he said. Kill an unarmed civilian. Show Princess Zara exactly what kind of people you really are. Zara had been watching silently, but now she spoke. Her voice was quiet but filled with growing strength. Is this who I served? Is this who I trusted to bring justice? You served us because you are a weapon. Voss snapped. Weapons don't think. They obey. I am not a weapon. Zara's eyes began to glow with soft light. I am a person, and I choose who I want to be. The chains around her wrists cracked louder. Fear crossed Voss's face. Stop her! He ordered his soldiers. Kill the human before she breaks free. Energy blasts filled the air. Jake dove to the side, but he wasn't fast enough. A blast hit him in the chest and he crashed into the stone wall. Jake! Zara screamed. Blood spread across Jake's shirt. He tried to stand but collapsed. I'm okay, he gasped, but they all knew he was lying. Zara felt something break inside her heart. Not break with sadness, but break with rage. Pure, righteous anger. You shot him, she whispered. He never hurt anyone. He just wanted to help me. The chains began to smoke and spark. He's a mechanic, Zara continued, her voice getting stronger. He fixes broken things. He makes the galaxy better. And you shot him like an animal. More cracks appeared in the soul steel. For 500 years, I believed I was a monster. I hated myself for the people who died because of me. But you know what? Zara looked directly at High Chancellor Voss. I'm not the monster in this story. You are. Voss realized his mistake too late. Everyone out! Get away from the chains. But Zara was just getting started. All the pain, all the guilt, all the self-hatred she had carried for centuries was transforming into something else. Not hate for others, but love for the innocent. Love for Jake, who had shown her kindness when everyone else showed her fear. I forgive myself, she said, and the words rang like a bell through the prison. I forgive the scared girl who trusted her father. I forgive the princess who tried to save everyone. I forgive the woman who made mistakes. The chains exploded with light, but not dark light anymore. This was the light of stars being born. I am Zara of Valonia, she declared, and power flowed through her like a river. I am not your weapon. I am not your prisoner. I am free. The soul steel chains shattered like glass. 500 years of stolen life energy rushed back into Zara all at once. She stood up for the first time in centuries, and she was magnificent. Her silver hair flowed like liquid moonlight. Her torn dress transformed into robes of starfire. Her eyes held the wisdom of someone who had suffered and learned to heal. But the first thing she did with her freedom was kneel beside Jake. Hold on, she whispered, placing her glowing hands on his chest. Please hold on. Jake's eyes fluttered open. He looked up at her transformed face and smiled weakly. Did it work? Are you free? Yes, Zara said, tears of joy streaming down her face. Thanks to you. Good, Jake whispered. That's all I wanted. His eyes closed. His breathing stopped. No. Zara's scream shook the entire prison. You don't get to die. Not now, not after everything. She poured her healing power into him, but Jake was too far gone. The blast had destroyed his heart. High Chancellor Voss and his soldiers tried to run, but Zara's power held them frozen in place. You killed him, she said, and her voice was like the sound of planets breaking. You killed the best person I ever met. For a moment, it looked like she might destroy them all. Her power could have turned the entire fleet into space dust. But then Jake's words echoed in her memory. Sometimes the solution isn't to fight the system. Sometimes you need to understand why it's broken in the first place. Zara took a deep breath and made a choice that would change the galaxy forever. Instead of destroying her enemies, she did something much more powerful. She forgave them. Her healing light spread out, not to hurt but to heal. It touched the minds of every council soldier, every cruel guard, every person who had lost their way. For just a moment they all felt what Jake had felt. Pure, unconditional love for all living things. High Chancellor Voss fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he remembered what it felt like to be good. And in that moment of perfect forgiveness and love, a miracle happened. Jake's eyes opened. His heart started beating. He sat up completely healed and looked around in wonder. How, he asked. Zara helped him to his feet, laughing and crying at the same time. I don't know. I chose love over hate. And somehow, that was enough. Jake looked at the transformed soldiers, at the weeping High Chancellor, at the broken chains scattered on the floor. "Well," he said, adjusting his tool bag, "looks like we fixed more than just chains today." Zara took his hand, and together they walked toward the prison exit, leaving behind 500 years of darkness. The galaxy would never be the same. 6 months later, Jake Morrison was fixing a broken coffee machine on a small space station when the emergency call came through. "Jake, Zara, please help us." The voice belonged to Captain Maria Santos of the trading ship Bright Hope. "The Council has our children. They're using some kind of mind control chains." Jake looked up from his repair work and sighed. Ever since word spread about what happened at the prison planet, people across the galaxy had been calling them for help. It seemed like everywhere they went, they found more of the Council's victims. "What do you think?" he asked Zara, who was reading a book nearby. Princess Zara had changed a lot in 6 months. She still had her incredible power, but she used it differently now. Instead of destroying things, she healed them. Instead of ruling people, she served them. And instead of wearing royal robes, she dressed in simple clothes like Jake's. "We should help them," she said, closing her book. "Children shouldn't suffer for adult mistakes." "Agreed." Jake packed up his tools. "But you know this means another fight with the Council, right? High Chancellor Voss might have learned to be good, but there are still plenty of bad guys out there." Zara smiled. "Then we'll teach them too." They traveled to the Bright Hope in Jake's repaired ship. What they found made both of them angry. 30 children ages 5 to 15 sat in perfect rows on the ship's deck. Their eyes were blank and empty. Around their necks were small silver collars that glowed with familiar dark energy. "Soul steel," Jake muttered. "They made portable versions." Captain Santos was crying as she explained. "Council soldiers came 3 days ago. They said our colony owed taxes we couldn't pay. So they took our children as payment. But they're not the same anymore. They don't talk. They don't play. They just follow orders." Jake knelt down next to a little girl with red hair. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. When he waved his hand in front of her face, she didn't even blink. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said gently. "What's your name?" The little girl's mouth moved, but the words that came out were cold and mechanical. "I am Unit 47. I exist to serve the Council." Jake's hands clenched into fists. "That's not your name. That's what they're making you say." He pulled out his emotion scanner and pointed it at the collar. The readings made him sick. The device was flooding the girl's mind with despair and hopelessness, just like Zara's chains had done. "Can you break them?" Captain Santos asked desperately. "Not with tools," Jake said. "These collars feed on the children's fear and sadness. The more scared they are, the stronger the control becomes." Zara stepped forward. "Then we need to replace their fear with something else." "What do you mean?" Zara knelt beside Jake and looked into the little girl's empty eyes. "We need to remind them that they're loved." She placed her hands gently on the child's shoulders. Her power flowed out, but not to attack the collar. Instead, she sent waves of pure love and safety into the girl's mind. "Your name is Emma," Zara whispered, somehow knowing it was true. "Your mommy calls you her little sunshine. Your daddy taught you to fly paper airplanes. You have a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Hoppy." The collar flickered. For just a moment, the girl's eyes cleared. "Mommy," she whispered in her own voice. But then the collar pulsed with dark energy, and her eyes went blank again. The device was fighting back. "It's not working," Captain Santos sobbed. "They're too strong." "No," Jake said firmly. "We just need to try a different approach." He turned to the ship's crew. "I need everyone who loves these children to help us." The screams echoed through the dark prison walls. Another hero was dying. Commander Vex of the Silver Legion writhed on the cold stone floor. His mighty sword lay broken beside him. The magical chains around Princess Zara's wrists glowed with dark energy, feeding on his life force. His body turned to ash within seconds. Princess Zara closed her eyes. She had seen this happen so many times before. "Another brave soul dead because of her. Next," shouted Guard Captain Roth. His voice was cold and cruel. "Who else thinks they can break the soul steel chains?" No one stepped forward. The crowd of warriors and mages backed away in fear. They had traveled from across the galaxy to attempt this legendary test. But seeing Commander Vex die so easily made them all think twice. Zara sat in her cell, chained to the wall for 500 long years. Once, she had been the most powerful princess in the Valonian Empire. Her people called her the Starbreaker because she could destroy entire ships with just her mind. But now she was nothing more than a prisoner. The chains were not ordinary metal. They were made of soul steel, a cursed material that grew stronger with each failed attempt to break it. Every time someone tried to free her and died, the chains absorbed their power. They were now thousands of times stronger than when they first bound her. "Tell them the rules again," said Captain Roth to his guards. He enjoyed watching people suffer. A young guard stepped forward and read from an old scroll. "These chains can only be broken by pure strength of will. Magic cannot cut them. Weapons cannot break them. Only the power of the heart can set the princess free. But beware, if you fail, the chains will drain your life and become stronger." Zara looked up at the new group of heroes. She saw the same thing in their eyes that she had seen in thousands of others: hope, determination, and foolish pride. They all thought they were special. They all thought they would be the one to succeed. "Please," Zara whispered, but no one heard her weak voice. "Please, just go home. Don't die for me." A tall warrior with blue skin stepped forward. His name was General Crack from the Titan Wars. His muscles were like mountains, and his armor shone with ancient runes. "I have defeated demon lords and space dragons," he announced loudly. "These chains will not stop me." He grabbed the chains with both hands. The moment he touched them, they began to glow. General Crack screamed as his strength was drained away. His powerful body became thin and weak. Within moments, he was nothing but dust. The chains grew brighter. They were stronger now. "Fools," muttered an old mage in the crowd. "They try to use force, but the chains feed on aggression." The mage stepped forward. He was Master Eldrin, keeper of ancient wisdom. Instead of grabbing the chains, he began to chant magical words. Spells of light and healing filled the air. For a moment, everyone held their breath. The chains seemed to flicker, but then they blazed with terrible power. Master Eldrin screamed as his magic was turned against him. He aged 100 years in seconds and crumbled to dust. Zara felt tears on her cheeks. Another good person was dead because of her. "You see?" laughed Captain Roth. 500 years and no one can break these chains. The princess will die here, and the chains will become the strongest weapon in the universe. That was the real reason the Galactic Council kept her here. They pretended it was punishment for her crimes, but Zara knew the truth. They wanted the chains to grow stronger. They planned to use them as a weapon against their enemies. The crowd began to leave. Some warriors were angry, others were scared. A few young heroes still looked determined, but their friends pulled them away. "Come back tomorrow," called Captain Roth. "Bring more heroes to feed the chains." As the prison grew quiet, Zara closed her eyes again. She thought about her home planet, destroyed long ago. She thought about her people scattered across the stars. She had tried to save them once, but that choice led her here. The chains hummed with dark energy around her wrists. They were warm now, full of the life force they had stolen. Each death made them heavier, but not just on her body. They were heavy on her heart too. Suddenly a loud crash echoed from outside. Guards shouted in confusion. "What was that?" Captain Roth demanded. A small spaceship had crashed near the prison gates. Smoke rose from its damaged engines. The guards laughed when they saw how tiny it was. "Looks like another hero has arrived," one guard joked. "This one must be really desperate." The ship's door opened with a rusty creak. Out stepped a human man in dirty work clothes. He carried a simple tool bag and looked very tired. His name was Jake Morrison, and he was just a space mechanic. He looked up at the massive prison walls and scratched his head. "Well," Jake said to himself, "this doesn't look like the repair station I was looking for." Jake Morrison walked through the prison gates like he owned the place. The guards stared at him in confusion. Most heroes came in shining armor or fancy robes. This human wore old work clothes covered in engine oil. "Stop right there." Captain Roth stepped in front of Jake. "This is a restricted area. Only registered heroes can attempt the trial." Jake looked around at the dark stone walls and torture devices. "Trial? What trial? I just need directions to the nearest repair station. My ship's engine is making weird noises." The guards burst into laughter. "You crashed here by accident?" One guard wheezed. "And you want to leave?" Well, yeah, Jake said, adjusting his tool bag. Unless you need something fixed. I'm pretty good with broken stuff. Captain Roth's eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. Actually, we do have something broken. The most broken thing in the galaxy. Follow me. They led Jake through twisting corridors to Princess Zara's cell. She sat chained to the wall, looking smaller and more tired than Jake expected. Her once beautiful dress was torn and faded. Her silver hair hung limp around her face. Behold, Captain Roth announced dramatically. Princess Zara, the Starbreaker, chained with unbreakable soul steel. Many have tried to free her. All have died. Jake studied the chains for a moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He sat down on the floor in front of Zara's cell and opened his lunch bag. What are you doing? Captain Roth demanded. Eating lunch, Jake said, unwrapping a sandwich. Haven't had food since this morning. Hard to think when you're hungry. The guards exchanged confused looks. Heroes usually started with big speeches about justice and honor. This human was eating a peanut butter sandwich. Zara lifted her head and stared at Jake. In 500 years, no one had ever sat down to eat in front of her cell. They all came ready for battle or magic rituals. Want half? Jake offered, holding out part of his sandwich. It's not fancy, but it's filling. What? Zara blinked in surprise. You want to share your food with me? Sure. You look hungry. Jake pushed the sandwich through the bars. When's the last time you ate something good? Zara's hands shook as she took the sandwich. She hadn't tasted normal food in decades. The prison only gave her bland soup to keep her alive. The simple sandwich tasted like the best meal she'd ever had. This is ridiculous, Captain Roth shouted. Are you here to attempt the trial or not? Jake looked up from his lunch. What trial exactly? To break the chains, you fool. To free the princess. Oh. Jake looked at the chains again, then at Zara. Do you want to be freed? It was such a simple question, but no one had ever asked her before. Heroes always assumed she wanted rescue. They never asked what she actually wanted. Zara's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know anymore. Jake nodded like this was a perfectly normal answer. That's okay. I felt lost before too. After my wife and daughter died in that space accident, I didn't know what I wanted either. The prison fell silent. Even the cruel guard stopped laughing. I'm sorry for your loss, Zara said softly. How do you keep going? One day at a time, one repair at a time. Jake pulled out a small photo of his family. They wouldn't want me to give up. So I keep fixing things, broken ships, broken machines, sometimes broken hearts. Zara felt something she hadn't felt in centuries. Someone understood her pain. Tell me about them, she said. Jake's face brightened. For the next hour, he told stories about his wife Sarah and little daughter Emma. How Sarah could fix any computer problem. How Emma loved to help him repair toy robots. How they died when pirates attacked their transport ship. As Jake spoke, something strange happened. The chains around Zara's wrists stopped glowing with dark energy. They still held her tight, but they weren't feeding on negative emotions anymore. That's impossible, whispered a guard. The chains always glow around people. Captain Roth stepped closer to examine the chains. They were still unbroken, but they looked different. Less hungry, Jake noticed too. That's interesting. These chains remind me of a feedback loop I once fixed on a cargo ship. The system was feeding on its own errors, making them worse. What do you mean? Zara asked. She found herself leaning forward, wanting to hear more. Well, the ship's computer was stuck in a cycle. Every time it tried to fix a problem, it created a bigger problem. The harder it worked, the worse things got. Jake studied the chains carefully. Sometimes the solution isn't to fight the system. Sometimes you need to understand why it's broken in the first place. Zara's eyes widened. No one had ever looked at her chains like a puzzle to solve instead of an enemy to defeat. You're not like the other heroes, she said. Jake shrugged. I'm not a hero at all. I'm just a guy who fixes things for a living. And lady, you look like something that needs fixing. For the first time in 500 years, Princess Zara smiled. The chains pulsed with dark energy, sensing the change. But instead of growing stronger, they seemed confused. They were designed to feed on anger, hate, and pride. They didn't know what to do with kindness and understanding. This is getting interesting, Jake said, standing up and brushing crumbs off his clothes. You know, I think I might stick around for a while. My ship needs repairs anyway, and this place could use a good mechanic. Captain Roth stepped forward, his face red with anger. You can't just live here. This is a prison. Jake looked around at the stone walls and rusty bars. Yeah, I can see that. Good thing I specialize in fixing broken systems. He winked at Zara, and she felt something she thought was gone forever. Hope. Jake spent 3 days studying the chains. He didn't try to break them or cast spells on them. Instead, he watched how they moved, how they glowed, and how they reacted to different people. You're wasting your time, Captain Roth said on the 3rd morning. Smarter people than you have studied those chains for centuries. Jake looked up from his notes. Maybe, but I bet none of them were mechanics. He had set up a small workshop near Zara's cell. The guards thought he was crazy, but they let him stay because he was entertaining. Jake fixed their broken weapons and armor in exchange for food and permission to sleep in the prison. What have you learned so far? Zara asked. Over the past few days, they had talked about everything. His travels across the galaxy, her memories of her home planet, their favorite foods, their fears and dreams. Well, Jake said, putting down his tools, these chains are definitely alive in some way. They think, they feel, and they're very, very angry. Angry? Yeah, watch this. Jake picked up a wrench and pretended to threaten the chains. Immediately they blazed with dark light, ready to defend themselves. Then he put the wrench down and spoke gently. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. The chains dimmed but stayed suspicious. See, they expect everyone to attack them. They've been fighting for so long they don't know how to do anything else. Zara stared at her chains with new eyes. I never thought of them as alive. Everything's alive in some way. Machines, computers, even these chains. The question is what makes them tick. Jake pulled out a strange device he had built from spare parts. This is an emotion scanner. I use it to check if ship computers are getting stressed. Mind if I test it on your chains? Go ahead. Jake pointed the device at the chains and frowned at the readings. This is weird. The chains aren't just angry. They're scared. Scared? Of what? I'm not sure. But there's something else. Jake's face went pale as he read the data. Zara, these chains aren't just feeding on failed heroes. They're feeding on you too, specifically your guilt and shame. Zara's heart stopped. What do you mean? Every time you blame yourself for someone's death, the chains get stronger. Every time you hate yourself for past mistakes, they grow tighter. You're not just their prisoner, you're their power source. Before Zara could respond, Jake did something incredibly brave and stupid. He reached through the bars and gently touched one of the chains with his bare hand. Jake, no! Zara screamed. The moment Jake's skin touched the soul steel, the world exploded in visions. Jake saw Zara's past like a movie playing in his mind. He saw her as a young princess, powerful and proud. He saw her people, the Valonians, using her abilities to destroy entire planets. He saw her horror when she realized what they were doing. We are bringing peace to the galaxy. Her father, the Emperor, had told her, these primitive worlds must bow to our superior civilization. But Zara had seen the truth. Her people weren't bringing peace. They were committing genocide. Billions of innocent people died because of her power. Jake felt her anguish as she tried to stop her own army. He experienced her pain when they branded her a traitor. He lived through her desperate attempt to save the last surviving world, even though it meant fighting her own family. And he saw the moment when the Galactic Council captured her. They promised to stop the Valonian Empire if she surrendered. She agreed, thinking she could save lives by sacrificing herself. But the Council lied. They used her surrender as an excuse to destroy the Valonian Empire completely. Every last one of her people died while she sat chained and helpless. Jake gasped and pulled his hand away from the chain. Tears ran down his face. Now you know, Zara whispered. Now you know why I deserve these chains. I killed billions of people. I destroyed entire civilizations. I failed everyone I ever tried to save. Jake wiped his eyes and looked at her with incredible sadness and understanding. Zara, he said softly, you didn't kill those people. Your father did. Your empire did. You tried to stop them. But I was their weapon. Without my power, without your power, they would have found another way. Tyrants always do. Jake moved closer to the bars. You were just a child when this started. You didn't choose to be born with that power. And when you learned the truth, you risked everything to make it right. But I failed. So, I failed to save my wife and daughter too. Does that make me evil? Zara stared at him. That's different. You couldn't have known about the pirate attack. And you couldn't have known your father was lying to you about bringing peace. Jake reached through the bars and took her chained hand. Zara, you're not a monster. You're a victim. The chains suddenly pulsed with violent energy. They didn't like this conversation. The chains don't want you to forgive yourself, Jake realized. That's what they're scared of. If you stop hating yourself, they lose their power source. But how can I forgive myself? All those innocent people, by honoring their memory, by making sure their deaths meant something. Jake squeezed her hand. You can't bring them back, but you can make sure no one else suffers the same way. For the first time, Zara began to understand. The chains weren't just holding her body prisoner. They were holding her heart prisoner too. Every day she spent hating herself made them stronger. Jake, she whispered, what if I'm not strong enough to forgive myself? Jake smiled, and it was the warmest, most honest smile she had ever seen. Then I'll help you remember how good you really are. Every day until you believe it. The chains shuddered. Tiny cracks appeared in the soul steel. Captain Roth's voice boomed through the prison. Emergency! Emergency! Contact the Galactic Council immediately. The chains are weakening! Guards ran in every direction. Alarms blared. But Jake and Zara only had eyes for each other. You don't need to be saved, Zara, Jake said, still holding her hand. You need to save yourself, and I'm going to help you remember how. The cracks in the chains spread a little wider. For the first time in 500 years, Princess Zara began to hope that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be free. The Galactic Council arrived like a storm of death and metal. 20 massive warships surrounded the prison planet. Council soldiers in black armor marched through the prison halls. Their leader, High Chancellor Voss, was a tall alien with cold silver eyes and a face like carved stone. Where is the human? He demanded as he entered Zara's cell area. Captain Roth pointed at Jake, who was still holding Zara's hand through the bars. There, Your Excellence. He's been weakening the chains somehow. High Chancellor Voss studied Jake with disgust. This small, dirty creature. This is what threatens our greatest weapon? I'm not threatening anything, Jake said calmly. I'm just talking to a friend. Friend? Voss laughed coldly. You befriend monsters. This creature destroyed worlds. No. Jake stood up slowly. Your people destroyed worlds. She tried to stop them. You know the truth. Voss's silver eyes flashed with anger. Silence. The chains are our property. This prison is our territory. You have no right to interfere. Actually, Jake said, pulling out his tool bag, I have every right. See, I'm not just any mechanic. I'm a licensed galactic repair specialist. According to Galactic Law 847B, I'm required to fix any dangerous broken systems I encounter. He held up an official certificate. And your chain system is definitely broken. It's torture, which violates 17 different galactic treaties. Voss snatched the certificate and crushed it. Your laws mean nothing here. Guards, kill him! 20 soldiers raised their weapons at Jake, but instead of running or fighting, Jake did something unexpected. He smiled.